There has been some major fan reaction to everything that we have put out this week for the Toronto Blue Jays offseason. We'll go over all of that, plus Addison Barger, his season review.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Nuwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Nuwasco. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok, at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here or you're listening anywhere else, you can make sure you go over to the YouTube page, hit the subscription, helps us out, keeps us at the top of your page. You'll get notified if there's any videos, shorts, live streams, anything like that. It'll all be on sort of the YouTube as our hub. We also have the Discord channel. A link is in the description if you want to come and talk Blue Jays with us any time of day as well. It is Movember still. It is Movember. Well, we're trying to raise money. It's a great organization. They do great things and supporting men's mental health. And, we want to try to do as much as we can. If you guys have anything lying around, $2, $5, whatever it is, go make sure you donate. The link is in the description. I cannot stress that enough. We always really appreciate it. Lot to get into today. Not a crazy, necessarily off-season episode here. Free agency, we're going to leave that for tomorrow as we'll have our big Juan Soto update. We're trying to put those out once a week, gather everything, put it out together all in once so we don't, overload you guys with the possibility of Juan Soto anyway. So we got the Barger. We got his season review. We're going to hit that first, talk about his season, what his season could look like into 2025 as well. Matt Hague has moved on from the Toronto Blue Jays, so we'll get into that. And then we have we're going to react to some of the stuff that you guys have sent out in the comment section because a lot of them have been very interesting, but some of them have been in the same vein. So we didn't want to keep, reposting the same response. So we're going to just answer them on the podcast. Carter, why don't you kick us off with some Addison Barger?
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. So Addison Barger, 24-year-old, just known as a power guy. That's that raw power bat, a guy that's hopefully going to hit home runs for the Toronto Blue Jays in the future, not necessarily your contact guy. Struggles a little bit defensively, but the power is his main thing coming out of college, coming out of the draft, and then developing through the minor leagues. So Addison Barger was drafted in 2018 as a 6th-round pick. He broke out in 2022, hitting 26 home runs between high A, double A, and triple A. And he was really good in AAA this past season in 2024. He slashed 260 with a 391 OBP and a 466 slugging with 9 home runs and a 240 or over 249 plate appearances. Showed positive signs in his at bats. Kept his K rate low, which has been a problem with Addison Barger. Kept it low at 19.3 with an impressive walk rate of 16.1. But as we know, AAA is not the same as the MLB. The MLB is a lot more talented than AAA. So Addison Barger did struggle a little bit when he did come up to the big leagues. He slashed 187 with a 250 on base, a 351, slugging with 7 home runs, over 225 plate appearances. That K rate got up to 26.7, and that walk rate was 6.2. Just wasn't very good in his first 2 stints. He came up, I believe it was in May, and just did not look good. I think he went like 2 for 22, made some costly errors as well. Just looked like he was not ready for the big leagues. I think he was only on the MLB team for about 2 weeks and then was sent back down. But Braden, I'll throw it back over to you for any additional stats or just any additional thoughts on Addison Barger.
Yeah, well, again, this is a guy we've had conversations about, a possible trade piece for those of you who watched our episode yesterday. But also when we look at Addison Barger as a whole, you're right, Carter. A guy that's sort of had some rough times. He started to do better, sort of fell off the wagon again. You know what? He is. He's just a strict power guy. And you'd think he would be better defensively because his arm strength is in the 99th percentile, Carter. You think that this guy would be able to get runners anywhere he's playing. But it's just not the case because he doesn't have the fielding ability to go along with it. So he's a very strange guy. I don't think he brings enough power to the plate to make that sort of difference. And he's not an average guy, and he's not a great defender. So in my mind, it's just right now is a very weird time for Addison Barger. He's either got to figure out how to put the bat on the ball. Again, his bat speed is pretty good. It's sitting at a 74.3, which is actually very good. It's his highest rated stat outside of his arm when we look over Baseball Savant. So in saying that, they're like, as I look down over his numbers, over his stats, over everything like that, and again, I always say I'm not the biggest stat guy, but it's backing up what the eye test tells me, is that Addison Barger maybe just isn't ready yet. But at the same time, I don't know how long you give him. He's still young. He's still got time. But there's not going to be a ton of opportunity with this Toronto Blue Jays team going into next season, probably, especially with guys like Will Wagner, Orelvis Martinez. I just don't really personally see a big spot here for Addison Barger. We've sort of given him the opportunity, and he hasn't blown us away.
He looked a lot better when he came up after the trade deadline, though. I'll give that as a positive for Addison Barger. I'll go over his line here. Again, not going to be an average guy. 214 average, 277 OBP, 414 slugging. So the OPS is just under 700. It's not exactly what you want, but there's progress there, obviously, from his first stints in the MLB. 7 home runs, 8 doubles, over 159 plate appearances. There's 2 plays that pop into my head when I think about Addison Barger and his season in 2024. I think of against the Los Angeles Angels when Joey Loperfido hits a solo shot in the 9th inning, and then Addison Barger back-to-back walks off the game.
Unreal.
That's the positive. And then the negative is there's a pop-up in the infield, and it's right to Addison Barger, but instead he's like looking at IKF. That's when IKF is obviously still on the team, and they just end up both not going after the ball, and Addison Barger lets it drop right in front of him. So that is a little bit of the negative for Addison Barger. And just looking at, obviously, we said he's not good defensively. He split time between third and the outfield. He looked way better in the outfield than he did at third base. And like you said, the fielding ability, the glove skills just aren't necessarily there. Addison Barger is just like a fast twitch guy. And I feel like in the infield, it's moving a little bit too quick for him. You almost want him to slow down and control it a little bit more, because with that arm strength, it can be a blessing and a curse, because there has been times where Addison Barger has launched the ball way over Vladdy's head at first base. And with it going that fast, it's probably going to make its way pretty heavily into right field. Just going over his third base stats compared to his outfield stats. At third base, he had 6 errors and a 925 fielding percentage, which is absolutely horrendous, over 251.1 or 256.1 innings. In right field, he had 2 assists, 0 errors. Perfect fielding percentage at 1,000 in 174 innings. And then in left field, had 1 assist, had 1 error, 938 fielding percentage. Again, not great, but over 55 innings. But it's just obvious that this guy is better in the outfield than he is at third base. And when you're looking at the Toronto Blue Jays outfield right now, you have George Springer, you have Daulton Varsho, who probably will not be ready for opening day. Again, we've said this every single podcast. It feels like we're pretty much guaranteeing a left field or an outfield signing at some point in this offseason. So there will be a bolster there. But then who's your next option? You have David Schneider, you have Joey Loperfido, who hasn't really showed it at the major league level. You have Jonathan Clase, who, again, who's a very good fielder. But do you want that bat in the batting lineup? I'm not exactly sure. And you brought up the arm strength, 99th percentile. This guy can absolutely sling the ball. And he has sneaky speed as well. I think it's in around the 70th percentile. Stole a couple bases for the Toronto Blue Jays. If you put this guy in the outfield, again, you're going to have to work through some growing pains. It's not going to be perfect right away. But if you can get this guy posted up in left field, right field, that arm strength is going to be massive. He's going to throw out a ton of runners, and he displayed that in left field and right field in a short amount of time there. If you look at a right fielder in history, again, he probably wouldn't be playing right field initially, but kind of gives me that Jose Bautista vibe from right field. You can just sling the ball around the diamond and gun some people at home, gun some people at third base, because you can't teach that arm strength. That's going to be a massive piece for Addison Barger. The big thing with Addison Barger is, other than the defense, is he's just he seems like a fast twitch guy. He just wants to go, go, go. Everything is so quick. Even with a swing, just an absolute free swinger. Again, it's awesome when he makes contact with the ball, but then sometimes it looks absolutely horrendous when he's swinging at a slider in the dirt. So with Barger, you just kind of want him to slow down, control more things. Again, you don't want the power to necessarily go away, but you need the bat-to-ball skills to be a little bit better at the MLB level.
Yeah, Carter, that's for sure. And sometimes you don't want to mess with a guy that is that fast twitch. I think that's the perfect analogy for him, because you're right. It does seem like he just wants to get out there. He wants to first pitch swing. He wants to chase the ball. He wants to hit the ball. And sometimes you don't want to take that away from a guy, right? If a guy's succeeding, that's not something you necessarily want to mess with, especially like a guy like Barger, who you can tell has the power. At the end of the day, though, if you're only going to bat 200, I think he was 197 on the season, if you're only going to bat 200 and yeah, you might hit some bombs, that's just not going to help. That's too low of an average to be an everyday MLB player. It's just not going to happen. I think the best we're going to see from Addison Barger is being a bench bat. And I don't know, for a guy that's that young, that sort of, I think, still has potential, is the best option for him. So my question going into the season is, what's Addison Barger's role going to be? And to be honest, Carter, if we're talking about the fielding, I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy that's going to come in. I think they would much rather go to a Joey Loperfido, especially in replacement of Daulton Varsho. And then I still think that Davis Schneider is probably going to be a bench role on this team, or that fourth outfielder. I think that they just don't want to let him go. And so what does that mean for Addison Barger? And I'm not sure. I mean, again, Davis Schneider was also batted 197 on the year. I'm not saying that he was much better. I just think that there is some likeness with Davis Schneider. If it's marketability, I don't know what it is. But it seems like that's what it is. Unless the spring training tells differently and Addison Barger goes nuts, I don't know what the position is for him on this team. And that even kills it further when Daulton Varsho comes back. So I talked about him as an infielder. I don't like him in the infield, but I also don't love him in the outfield either. So I don't necessarily know what his spot is for this team. And that's why when we were talking about the trades in yesterday's episode, one of those guys that was in multiple of mine is Addison Barger, because I don't know the spot that he has on this team. And I don't necessarily know if sending him back down to AAA is the best option either.
Yeah, obviously with this guy's 25 years old, you want him to play. When you look at him compared to Davis Schneider, one major thing is going to be Davis Schneider has shown you that he can compete at the major league level. He's shown you that he can be a very serviceable MLB player. Whereas Addison Barger, again, he did look a little bit better down the stretch, but is that enough to make him an MLB-ready hitter, an MLB talent for the Toronto Blue Jays? Not necessarily one that you'd want off the start. With Barger, again, like if you send him to AAA, he's got the power. So if you want to trade him, like his value, you could say, is at the highest it's ever been. But he also has the ability to hit another 30 home runs in AAA and then make that decision kind of tough for you on your major league club. But he also has the ability to just strike out every single at bat, not really make contact, and then diminish that value. Again, it's tough to speculate right now because the Toronto Blue Jays have made 0 free agent moves. Right now, if you're looking at the team, he might be a bench bat, but if you make 3 more signings, probably not going to make the AAA roster, the Major League roster would be starting at AAA. And you're right, it's going to come down to spring training with a lot of these fringe players, with the Loperfidos, with honestly Davis Schneider. I'm going to throw in there right now. Addison Barger, Orelvis Martinez is another guy. These guys are going to have to show out in spring training. It's going to be some nice incentive for them to have a good and strong spring training. It's going to be incentive that if they want to make the MLB team, they're going to have to show it in spring training. They're going to have competitive at bats. And it's going to make for a little bit of in-team competition, which I don't think can be a bad thing for the Blue Jays for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't necessarily. I think Addison Barger is one of those pieces that can slide in. It's just that I think, again, we always go back to this in the sense of, if Addison Barger plays, are the Blue Jays a good baseball team? I don't believe so. I think that there has to be better options there. So at the end of the day, again, we'll wait and see. Carter, I know we got to get into our grade still for Addison Barger, but I'll sort of leave it here, is that I don't necessarily know that he was one of the bigger disappointments. I just think I expected more from him, and I wanted more from him, because I think if he was going to make a significant impact with this team, he had to be better than he was last season. So in saying that, Carter, what's your final grade for Addison Barger?
With Barger coming up, he was kind of exactly what I expected. You saw some of the raw power. You saw a lot of defensive mishaps, especially at third base. I don't want to see this guy play the infield. It's tough to watch Addison Barger play infield when you had guys like Matt Chapman, when you had Ernie Clement playing there, you had IKF playing there. Going to Barger, not exactly what you want on the defensive side of the ball, but he kind of was as advertised for me. Again, when you look at that first stint, not exactly where I wanted to be, was a little bit better down the stretch. I'm going to go C- here. Wasn't completely under expectations, probably wanted him to be better, but with Barger, I think I would want to see from this guy next season is I want him to start in AAA, and then I want him to work his way up into the MLB club. If he has a very good first couple months with the AAA club and makes it a tough decision for the Toronto Blue Jays, I think that's best case scenario for our ball club.
Yeah, well, you took those sort of words right out of my mouth. Mine was also a C-, just because, like you said, it was worse than I thought it was going to be. I thought he was going to come in and make more of a difference. I think the batting average really throws me for a loop. I didn't expect him to have a 270 batting average, but I didn't expect him to have a 197 either. I sort of expected him in the 230-ish mark, 240. And it was worse than expected. And you're right, the fielding kills me. Watching him on the defensive side of the ball just was painful. Even though I love seeing the arm when he rips it across the diamond or from the outfield, it's a lot of fun. But you're right, C-. It was lower than expectations, but I don't think it was egregiously lower than expectations. I don't think you went into that season thinking Addison Barger was going to be, Jesus Christ, and then he comes in and beats that. No, you expected Addison Barger to come in, swing for some power, be not great defensively, and that's sort of what you got. It's just you didn't get as much of the power as you probably necessarily wanted. Carter, in saying that, we got to get into Matt Hague because we do want to get into some fan responses as well. So we'll talk about Matt Hague right when we come back after this short break. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know we talk about FanDuel almost any chance we get because it is one of my favorite apps. I'm getting Carter going on it as well. I needed Carter to get that $150 bonus bets. That is clutch. And I'll tell you guys more about that. But the more that we get going, the more that we're betting, the more we're winning because I actually end up watching games. And the NFL has been amazing for that. I've watched some games this year that I necessarily wouldn't have before. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Well, Carter, we're seeing a Blue Jay leave in the sense of Matt Hague. He's returning to the Pittsburgh Pirates after actually playing there. And I don't know, Carter, what do you got to say? Is this one of those things that's like a needle mover for you at all?
Guillermo Martinez obviously got fired after a long overdue stint. The Blue Jays, obviously, the last 2 years were just horrendous. So it kind of makes sense with Matt Hague being the assistant batting coach. He also didn't necessarily get let go because the Toronto Blue Jays didn't fire him. He just left to get a better job as the hitting coach with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Matt Hague gave me a little bit more hope than Guillermo Martinez because it seemed like a lot of the guys would, instead of going to Guillermo, they'd go to Matt Hague in the dugout, whether it was just to look at the iPad, whatever they're looking at, mechanics, just different pitches that the pitcher was throwing in situations, things like that. But every time I go back to this batting coach stuff, the same thing occurs in my head is that how much do they really matter? Yes, they're going to give you a scouting report. Like I said, they're going to give you analysis and numbers on which pitches a pitcher will throw in specific situations, 3-2 counts, 1-2 counts, 0-2 counts, things like that. And obviously there is game plans as well. If you got for example, for Kevin Gausman, a lot of the teams, what they would do is they would lay off the splitter low and they would try to look for anything up the zone. Sometimes that worked out. The Minnesota Twins usually have a pretty good game plan against Kevin Gausman. So there are instances where game plans can work out for you. But overwhelmingly, if you bring in a guy like David Hopkins is now the hitting coach, he's not going to we're talking about Addison Barger. He's not going to make Addison Barger go from a 200 hitter to a 290 hitter. That's just not what their role is. You're not going to completely change a hitter. They're going to have their specific things. They're going to have their strengths, their weaknesses. And it's more so what the hitting coach is. Again, it's that game plan. It's looking if there's any mechanical breakdowns. But a lot of the time, these MLB players are working on their own swings throughout the season and in the offseason. So I don't really think they're taking a ton away from the hitting coach in that aspect.
No, you sort of hit the nail on the head. It does make a difference, but a lot of these guys, when they go back in off seasons, they have their own guys to go back to, guys that they've grown up with and worked with. So, yeah, you're right, Carter. It doesn't make that much of a difference. Yes, little mechanical things absolutely will help, and if guys are in a little bit of a slump, they're going to ask questions. They're going to try to ask anybody for some advice. But at the end of the day, these guys aren't make or break your baseball team. So really this doesn't move the needle whatsoever for me. Brutal to see him go because I think he had like you said, a better relationship with some of these guys. But I think, he probably had a little soft spot for Pittsburgh. So good for him. He'll be the new incumbent hitting coach. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really got much else to talk about on it. I just think at the end of the day, The Blue Jays had to switch something up because the hitting hasn't been good enough. So if this is the case and this is what had to happen, then it's what had to happen. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, you can't blame Matt Hague for wanting pretty much a promotion is what he got with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's now the hitting coach, probably going to make a lot more money. Just willing to, now he's able to prove himself as a hitting coach. Maybe he wants to have manager aspirations in his career. So just making career advancement, you can't really fault the guy for that whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think in any job ever in your position, you're always going to be looking for that next bump up. So absolutely can't. I'm not saying nothing ill will to Matt Hague on this one. But Carter, in saying that, we have some fan responses we want to get into. I've found a couple of them just over the past, I want to say 2 or 3 podcasts that we've done. We've had some comments asking us some questions, asking giving opinions and what we think on the opinions. Some people have been going back and forth in the comments, which I absolutely love. Take a look through that. If you're going to drop a comment and you see something that maybe you disagree with, don't go insane. Don't be an idiot. But, definitely, I don't mind you guys throwing opinions back and forth. We might hop in.
We love good banter in the comment section. Definitely not going to complain about that.
I know me and Carter, we were in the car chatting about it before. I think we were on the way back from hockey yesterday, and we were throwing around a few. So in saying that, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with some of your fan responses. So fan response time. I'm pumped. I'm ready to rock. I've gotten a couple here, Carter, that I've just sort of screenshot over the past little bit. There actually isn't too many because some of them I think like it's going to take us like the insane amount of time just to actually get through them. And some of them are fun. Some of them are a little bit. I think I picked out a couple that actually had like people chatting in the comments. I wanted to start here. This is one me and you talked about this morning. I didn't really give you a full brief on which ones I gathered. But it is one that we talked about, and there is a response to this one as well. This one says, I read somewhere last night that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was made available to all teams. Can't find the link for it today. If it's true, it could make things difficult to sign available free agents. And Carter, this is something that I have seen a little bit online as well, that there was a GM report to a reporter saying that people are asking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that the option's on the table, blah, blah, blah. I would say don't read into this. Don't take this at face value. Right now, it's free agency. Everywhere is looking for clicks and anything. So even if somebody in passing mentions something that probably doesn't mean anything, if you're a reporter, if you've got a podcast, if you're doing whatever, you're probably taking everything to the next extreme. So again, barring, any situation with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., just be weary would be my suggestion there.
No, I completely agree. The only one that I saw regarding that was just an anonymous GM saying that, he would be available. And I just kind of looked over it for 5 seconds. I'm like, okay, this is just like the regular, Bichette doesn't want to be here. His friend says that he doesn't want to be here. It's just, it's tough to take that with any sort of validity, especially where we are with free agency, how the Toronto Blue Jays season went last season. What Ross Atkins has said, with what Vladdy has said, they've said nothing but they want to reach a deal. But again, what do you expect them to say? So again, with these articles, you can take bits and pieces from them, but don't take anything you see like right at face value. If you see that, I don't know, Shohei Ohtani is going to get traded to the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think I would take that with any sort of value whatsoever. So again, use your head a little bit as well in these instances. But with the Juan Soto stuff, with a lot of the stuff that's going on, how crazy this offseason has already been, it is tough sometimes to kind of separate the emotion from what you actually think is going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we get wrapped up in every move, every transaction, every possible transaction. So, again, try not to take things as they come, but it's easier said than done because we do about the same thing. Moving on here, Carter, to the next one I got here. Jay's farm system is weak, so they will struggle with trades and they will have pretty much zero pitching depth. How do you feel about that one?
The Jays farm system, unfortunately, is still not very good. I have to agree with that. They did have a great trade deadline. I'm not going to take anything away from that. But when you get like 9 out of your top 30 prospects from that previous trade deadline, it's not usually a good sign for what your prospect system is looking like. Yeah, they do have a couple prospects in there that you can be excited about. Trey Savage, obviously Jake Bloss, Orelvis Martinez, Ricky Tiedemann, if he ever becomes healthy. There are some guys here that do compete with some other teams. But again, when you're looking at the top 100 prospects, I think the Toronto Blue Jays have one in there. So it's Orelvis Martinez. Last time I checked, it was at like 91. So you don't have a guy in the top 50. You don't have a guy in the top 75. So again, a very good trade deadline. Don't want to take anything away from that. And there are some guys to get excited about. When you compare the Toronto Blue Jays prospect system to the rest of the league, at best, they're in the middle of the pack.
Well, Carter, we talked about trades the other day, and this guy sort of leaned into it with they'll struggle with trades, and I sort of agree. With not a ton of guys in the system, it's going to be tough to pick out which guys are trade worthy and which ones aren't. What teams are guys? What guys teams are looking for, and so on. Sorry about that. I got a little frog. In saying that, did you just get that alert emergency notification?
I did, yeah. Just a test, but it kind of threw me off as well. I saw you looking, and then my phone just starts vibrating out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, something obviously is going on again. Just the random things happening during our recordings lately have been pretty interesting from especially a viewer's perspective.
Yeah, I think
we have weird faces going on the podcast, especially if you're on YouTube, just looking like, what are these guys? What are they looking at here?
No, it seems like every time the podcast is going on, something's happening. Anyway, Carter, in saying that, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I got another one here, and this one I knew got some people a little bit flustered. This was from, I believe, it was our Juan Soto episode end of last week. My opinion only is Soto will not be a Blue Jay, as he is a showboat, and as far as I'm concerned, Bichette is a better player. So pay him and make Vladdy happy. Soto will be a Met next year, and that is all she wrote, period. How do you feel about that one?
For me, I think Vladdy probably is better friends with Juan Soto than Bichette. Maybe that's a hot take for me. Like, Bichette and Vladdy are on the same baseball team, but Juan Soto and Vladdy, they hang out when in the offseason. They hang out pretty much any opportunity they get. You don't really see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette hanging out in the offseason. For me, I prefer Juan Soto. Obviously, I wouldn't want Bichette, especially with the last season that he did have. When you look at these two players, Juan Soto is going to provide you more power. The OPS has been throughout his career close to 1,000, which is absolutely insane. Bichette isn't touching that, unfortunately. Juan Soto is going to give you more home runs. Juan Soto is going to give you more walks, most likely. Bichette, again, he does have his strengths. Obviously, he can hit the ball the opposite way, play shortstop. It's more of a premium position, but not necessarily the best defender either. I just think Juan Soto, the upside is just so much higher than you would have with Bichette.
Yeah, and I understand the thought process here a little bit, but at the end of the day, Juan Soto is just a better baseball player. And if we can have all three of them, I'd be more than happy with that. But, this guy also did mention that he thinks he's going to be a Met. And I 100% agree with that. I think Juan Soto is going to be a Met. I don't, again, we'll get into this more so in tomorrow's episode. But I think it's going to be the Blue Jays or the Mets. And I think, again, it might be one of those leverage situations where he ends up, the Mets end up paying a premium for Juan Soto.
And I have one question actually as well. I'll address that too. I think he's going to be a Met. Unfortunately, it's if it's not the Mets, it's probably the Yankees. It's just more attractive locations, and it seems like Juan Soto didn't enjoy his time with the Yankees. But we'll get more into that for our tomorrow episode. So I got one. It's actually from Justin Powers. It's a little bit about our Shohei Ohtani debate with the Juan Soto contracts, things like that. And I'm just going to kind of sum it up. He said we have a little bit of homework for you guys. Just get the highest pitching contract right now and the highest hitting contract that's not Shohei Ohtani. Combine them and see what we have. So with Aaron Judge, this is the highest per year contract. He's making $40 million a year. And then you have Max Scherzer, who's making $43 million a year. So you combine those two, obviously you're getting $83 million a year. Shohei Ohtani is getting $70 million a year, not technically because it's all deferred money. And I guess it kind of goes to the point. Would you rather have a guy like Shohei Ohtani, or would you rather have Aaron Judge and Max Scherzer on your team? For me, I'm taking Judge and Scherzer. Unfortunately, I think that's a no-brainer for me. Again, you're playing $13 million more for that, so I guess in that sense, it's kind of fair. But that just goes back to the Juan Soto thing. If you get for me, if it's anywhere near Shohei Ohtani in the term, the contract, things like that, I think you're massively overpaying for a guy. But I'm going to back it up by saying this. If the Toronto Blue Jays sign Juan Soto for $700 million for 14 years, yeah, the last 4 years of that contract might not be great, but then you get Juan Soto for at least 10 years. I don't think I can complain too much about that because it's not our money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think it is an overpay. I 100% agree. I do going back to what that conversation was. I understand that the market might start going up. It might, instead of it being the 40 million for Judge, it might be the 42 or 45, whatever it might be. And that's all comes back to Shohei a little bit and Judge a little bit himself. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it doesn't matter what Juan Soto is. Like, yeah, I think there's better option, the better option for the contract. I think that, whatever. At the end of the day, if Juan Soto was a Toronto Blue Jay, I am more than happy with whatever. I'm not even going to be thinking about the money because I'm guessing some of it's going to be either deferred or it's going to be a back end load contract so the Blue Jays can, make sure that they can sign other guys as well. I mean, Carter had a little bit this talk in the car yesterday, which I think we'll get into still tomorrow a little bit in the Juan Soto episode. I really do want to talk about sort of different things that could happen with that contract. In saying that, Carter, that's all I got. Thursday episode. There you go. We'll be back tomorrow with that Juan Soto episode. Carter, anything else before you kick out of here?
I got one more extension from Justin's comment there. I think he also commented that the DH part. So Aaron Judge is just the highest paid contract in the league. If you look at the highest paid DH, it would be Stanton, and that is $32 million. So you add $32 million to $43 million. That is $75 million. So at that point, if it's Stanton and Scherzer compared to Ohtani, I'm taking Ohtani every day of the week.
Yeah, probably. I mean, again, Stanton with a good playoffs. I don't necessarily know how the best season of all time. I think he's a little bit more hit and miss. If it's Judge and you got to pay a little bit of a premium to get Judge over Stanton, absolutely every day of the week. But yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. Stanton, the highest paid DH. Anyways, guys, appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, make sure you go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. He's going to be doing, transactional breakdowns, everything throughout the offseason for the entire MLB. So make sure you go check that out. And we'll be back again tomorrow with that Juan Soto episode.